Hey, what's up, Street Talks? It's Eric from the Eric Street Photography blog. So I wanted to just give you my final thoughts on the Fujifilm GFX 50R. So long story short, I think digital medium format is probably the biggest game changer in photography because honestly at this point, this is the way I see it. Full frame and APS-C sensors more or less are starting to get the same image quality, and at this point I think full frame is a little bit overrated. It seems like the future of photography is going two ways. Digital medium format, people are always going to want better image quality and more, that kind of stuff. And then people are going to want a more convenient camera, aka, smartphone technology. So at this point, this is just my practical thought. If you just want like a simple everyday camera, easiest thing is to just buy a Ricoh GR version 2. If you want something to do more commercial work, or you just want like super epic image quality, digital medium format is no joke. And my overall thoughts with the GFX 50R are very positive. It's literally an everyday camera that you could carry in your hands. It's actually kind of hilarious too because the it's like a pretty big looking camera, but you pick it up, it's actually super light. And things I really like about it is the electronic viewfinder. Let's see if you could see it. Oh yeah, it looks like you can. So, the electronic viewfinder, it focuses pretty quickly, and when you're using the electronic viewfinder, it works really well. Even though the camera is big and boxy, there's nothing really super big that protrudes. Generally speaking, in terms of the settings, I've just kept it in aperture priority mode. Here's the shutter button. Drive, never touch that. Exposure compensation. The hilarious thing is that because the image quality of this is so amazing, I just keep it at 0, don't really touch it. And in terms of the lens, I was testing the 45mm 2.8, and you could obviously change the aperture blade by pushing this little button. It goes all the way up to 2.8. I just keep this in A. So essentially I'm just shooting the whole camera in P mode. And if you're curious, this is what the lens looks like without the hood, and this is with the hood. It's a super lightweight setup, and generally speaking, the back of the camera, it's pretty simple. There's this little flippy thingy, and I just love how minimalist the back of the camera is. Here's your play button, menu button. You go through the menus and stuff like that. Also, Fujifilm, they've done a really good job of simplifying the menus. There used to be a ton of junk in the menus and it was kind of impossible to find anything. But I found this is like probably the best Fujifilm menu that I've seen on any of their cameras. And I personally didn't really find myself using these extra function buttons that much, or even the Q button. I just essentially just kind of set it and forget it. And I found myself using a combination of both, using the LCD screen and also electronic viewfinder. Also, the cool thing with the electronic viewfinder is that you can notice that the electronic viewfinder is not in the center of the camera. It's a little bit off to the side, like where a rangefinder is, like if you're shooting with a Leica or something like that. So actually there's something really fun about holding it to the side. And I found myself, especially when shooting in bright sunlight, using the electronic viewfinder definitely helped a ton. Or other times I find myself using the LCD screen. Also works really well. And I was looking through some of the image quality of the GFX 50R and shooting RAW, and this is my practical thought. If you're going to shoot digital medium format, at least I found on the GFX 50R, I wasn't like this is just my personal opinion, I wasn't like super impressed with the JPEG settings that came out of the GFX 50R. I mean, they look good, but I think if you really want to extract the full maximum out of digital medium format photography or the GFX 50R, shoot RAW. Generally speaking, I'm a big fan of shooting JPEG, but man, when you're shooting RAW on the GFX or a digital medium format, the amount of detail you get from it is incredible. And the fun thing is that especially when you're shooting color or during bright daylight, the reason why I also think that the GFX 50R and also digital medium format camera is such a big game changer at the moment is because I always think the Achilles heel of digital photography was the highlights. The highlights would always tend to get blown out and just kind of look ugly. But now you just shoot any scene in RAW on a GFX 50R or like even a Pentax 645Z, which are two of the probably the best digital medium format cameras on the market in terms of bang for the buck. All the details there, and there's so much fidelity in the files and so much you can control with the post-processing. So if you're somebody who enjoys post-processing in Lightroom, then I think you'll have a great kick out of it. And a question people might be wondering is like, oh, okay, once you get a digital medium format camera like a GFX 50R or a Pentax 645Z, will I suddenly become so much more inspired and happy in photography and life? Obviously the answer is no. Most likely, if you already have cameras collecting dust on your shelf, and you bought one of these, it probably would also collect dust on the shelf as well. What I just find interesting about this is that even with the image quality, it just looks different. And I feel that if you're a type of photographer that you live in the suburbs or you like to shoot nature or street photography or whatever, but you don't really have that much time to go to the downtown areas and you just want to shoot around your neighborhood or even in boring areas, this is actually a pretty good carry around camera. You can just toss this in your bag. It is a little bit bigger, but at least the good thing is that it's not that heavy. And yeah, I just found myself having a lot of fun shooting with it. In terms of the build quality, it still feels pretty solid. And this is just like a personal aesthetics thing. If you've ever held a a Pentax 645Z, the thing is like a freaking beast. If and I've tested both these cameras and I really like both cameras, but if I could actually buy a digital medium format camera with my own money, I would still actually at this point side with the Pentax 645Z. The reason is I just think it's just going to be more robust long term. This camera might get outdated kind of soon-ish because Fuji's, this is a pro and a con, is that Fuji keeps pumping out new products, so I wouldn't be surprised if there is a GFX 50R version 2 in the next few years, whereas the Pentax 645Z, it's kind of here to stay. So, and also there's other small things like I like using the optical viewfinder of the Pentax 645Z, and I just kind of prefer the build quality and the aesthetics and the way it looks. And it's something that's totally stupid is that, caring about how your camera looks. But for me, the aesthetics of the camera is really important. I like objects where I actually like the design, because the GFX, it's great, it's super lightweight. But the reason I don't like the aesthetics, it just looks a little bit too boxy. It kind of reminds me of like the Fujifilm X Pro 2. To be frank, I've never really been a huge fan of the aesthetics of the X Pro 2. This essentially looks like an X Pro 2 on steroids. And once again, this is just like my super frank, aesthetics thing, is that I think the aesthetics on the Pentax 645Z are a lot more beautiful than this one. But still, once again, I really don't want to rag on this camera at all because it's a really innovative camera. It's really solid. All the on and off button here on the side, it works really well. The autofocus on the camera is pretty fast. It's quite responsive. There's no real lag or anything like that. So if you're a big Fujifilm camera fan and you're interested in digital medium format cameras, I would highly recommend the GFX 50R. If you've never really shot digital medium format before, I would give this and also the Pentax 645Z a go. Probably a good deal is to get a used Pentax 645Z at this point. And also comparing the image quality of the Pentax 645Z versus the GFX 50R. I still think I prefer the image quality of the Pentax 645Z a little bit more. I have no idea in terms of the imaging technologies about this sensor, to be frank. I know that the Pentax 645Z doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter, so it just seems like it's a little bit sharper and has like, to me, like a more film-like aesthetic, whereas this kind of looks like, it kind of looks more like CMOS-y, like it looks like a Canon 5D image on steroids, which still looks really amazing. You could pump out tons of detail from this using different presets, and it's a ton of fun. But yeah, just give both the cameras a go. And yeah, I would say it's probably Fujifilm's best camera ever made. In terms of the GFX 50R, I really have no complaints and no critiques for it. I'll give it a perfect 10, to be honest. But at this point, I guess you could just kind of be choosy. But I would still choose the Pentax 645Z. And yeah, so digital medium format camera, I think digital medium format cameras are actually really underrated, to be quite frank. And like my buddy Bill Brown says, at this point he'd probably prefer to shoot digital medium format over shooting film, because in terms of course, in terms of the convenience and also in terms of the image quality, shooting color, especially on a shooting color digital photography on a digital medium format camera, or shooting color on GFX 50R looks amazing. So just see my blog post where I do like a comparison of some before and afters, and also have a Dropbox link to unprocessed raw photos plus the processed raw files. It's about 1 gigabyte. It's a Dropbox link. You download it, look it for yourself. And yeah, if you're just curious, test it out for yourself. If you don't like it, return it. If you like it, just stick with it. But it's a really exciting time to be a photographer right now. Lots of new technologies to come. Well, for those of you guys who have shot with the GFX 50R or have one or tested one out, or even those of you guys who have the Pentax 645Z or tested out, or even your thoughts about digital medium format photography in the future, different tips and tricks you guys might have, leave a comment down below. Really excited to hear what you guys say. But yeah, DMF, digital medium format, I think it's really the future of photography. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace out.